Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me at the back? Because I have a very loud voice, so that's why I put the mic down. I don't force you again. My name is Wami. I'll be comparing this discussion between Associate Professor Poe and Professor Faisal. And today's topic is about discussing Africa's underdevelopment and the role of leadership and followership in Africa's present predicament or position. So the intent of this discourse is that it is very interactive, so please feel free to take notes, write out questions. There will be time to engage with the speakers, and based on the subject matter that arises, we will throw questions to both our speakers. So feel free to engage. This is not a lecture where you just come and sit and listen and take notes. Feel free to ask questions. There will be ample time for that. And thank you very much and welcome. Let me just give a brief bios of both our speakers. Professor Faisal is, he has been an ambassador to the World Trade Organization, and he has led most of South Africa's post-democracy delegations to the World Trade Center. He has led South Africa's bilateral agreements. So he's basically the go-to guy for African and South African World Trade Organization agreements, and he'll be speaking to us on how he thinks African countries come to the bargaining table, the international bargaining table, and whether we come from a place of disadvantage, and if we don't come from a place of disadvantage, at the table, is it that the game is already rigged against us? On the other hand, we have Professor Poe, who is an associate professor in the Northwest University. He's a public admin and governance. He heads the public admin and governance program in the VAR campus. He's a public policy specialist, and he focuses on local enterprise, and his work centers around how we create an enabling environment for SMEs to thrive in post-democratic African societies. And so, with that being said, I guess we can kick off the discussion by asking both our speakers the assumption or the joke that is often made is that while the rest of the world has natural disasters, Africa's problem is more of a human disaster. Is this true? And if it is true, how much of that problem can be, should I say, associated to our colonial past? Is it a case of the colonial administrators handing over to us a system that we can fundamentally not work with? Or is it a case of us having a system that works, just not having people that can make the system work? What would you say to this? And as an extension of that, how much do you think is the problem of leadership in shaping the continent post return to self-rule in Africa? I don't know if Professor Poe, you want to take a first look at it.
I believe Elder should go first. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, let me thank the organizers really for providing this fantastic opportunity to have this conversation with all of you. And let me also acknowledge... Okay, we'll use this. Hello, can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah, so I wanted to first thank the organizers for inviting me to participate in this discussion. And also wanted to recognize my good friend here. We have met before at a previous conference, and very pleased to have you here, Professor, to discuss with UCT, the Center for Law and Society. And I really I'm pleased that you've chosen such an interesting topic, law in Africa, and you've started this series because there's a great deal going on the continent, and there is a great deal to discuss. So let me also recognize that there are other people in the audience who probably know a lot more about Africa than I do. My esteemed colleague, Professor Ella Alo, who teaches in the law faculty, and Kathy, who also has a great deal of experience in law and society. My experience really is related to, as Wami has indicated, the trade negotiations both in the continent and between the continent and the world at large. I have worked for South Africa as its lead trade negotiator with a number of countries in the world, including the European Union, more recently with the United States in the negotiations on AGOA, the African Growth and Opportunity Act. And I did spend quite a long time representing South Africa in Geneva in the World Trade Organization. So I'm still trying to digest the topic. Wami, you threw a lot at us all at once, and and essentially, as I understand the topic you want us to talk about is what are the fundamental causes of Africa's challenges? Is it due to the objective reality that it has inherited from its past and is currently faced with? Or is it because it hasn't been blessed with good leaders? So, in my former life, I was a political activist. I also studied development economics once upon a time. And although I teach in trade, I consider myself to be a political economist. And I love to think about issues in a more holistic way. So I would say that there's no simple answer to the challenge, to the questions you raise. There's no simple answer. It's neither, the leaders or people, bad leaders in Africa, or the conditions of colonialism that we've inherited. I think we have to take a long view, a historical view. It's always good to know where we come from and to understand the current situation in its historical context. And I take a very, very long view because I think it's also important for us to know where we all come from. And we don't start our history with the Renaissance or with Jan van Riebeeck in the case of South Africa. But we take a much longer view about world history and the civilizations that existed well before the Renaissance and the European Enlightenment. But I won't talk about that today. I think that for me, what's important is what's going on today on the continent and where we're going. So I want to say a few words about that, and we can then I'll pass on to my friend and colleague here, Professor Paul. I think that today Africa is in a very, very exciting place. I say this after having spent over 20 years working in Africa and with the African group in Geneva, working with the African Union on various issues. So, at least in my own memory, my direct personal memory, I remember the time when in the year 2000, the Financial Times, not Financial Times, the Economist. The Economist is a very popular economic magazine, which goes back at least 100 years. Very influential. And in the year 2000, the Economist said, on its front page, it said, "Africa, the hopeless continent." That's what it said. So of course, to some people, including myself, this is not a nice thing to say about anyone, the hopeless continent. But there were some elements of truth in the that caption. Because when you look at what was going on the continent for at least 20 years before, through the 1980s and the 1990s, you see a very bleak picture. Africa's growth rates were very, very low, almost at between 0 and 1%. Almost all the economies on the continent were highly indebted. Almost all of them were under the duress of the World Bank and the IMF because they were forced to adopt structural adjustment programs by the bank, the World Bank and the IMF. And in many countries in Africa, the poverty rates had increased remarkably, and there were pictures, those of you who remember that I do, of countries like Ethiopia, where there was a lot of famine, and the general picture of the continent was one of a continent that had no hope. So in that sense, the economists did capture what was going on in the continent at the time.
Sorry, Professor.
Yes.
What you are sketching now is, for me, it's in theory. In practice, it's a different ballgame. For me, we still have that big man mentality in Africa. If you look at DRC, and if you look at even Uganda, it's almost 30 years there. If you look at Kenya, all these places, not much has changed since 1960. For the few elite,
just put the slide up.
there has been a change. For the majority, it's worse. Because now and you dare not criticize them, because I've listened last week at these guys from KwaZulu-Natal attacking Professor Klaasen and Merida Haas to speak out against violence in deep rural area. They were told, you are a white woman, you can't criticize us. And this thing on Yamatas. My point is, Professor, what you are sketching there, for me it hasn't changed. In theory we can say what we want. But the facts is res ipsa loquitur. The facts speak for themselves. But the theory we can paint a different picture. So for me nothing has changed. It is only that, and you won't get this guy, not Kabila, the other guy, Burundi. You won't get him out. And there's another guy, Paul Kagame. The reason why the West like Paul Kagame is because he's dictator and he allows private investment. But it's only for the few there who talk there. So it hasn't changed from that. I'm sorry for that.
Okay, I'll pass on to Professor Paul, then we can come back and pick up the discussion. I was just beginning to make my point, by the way. So I haven't yet made my point yet. That was just an introduction point. Thank you.
All right, that's why you always give it to the elders. Let them die first. You're just coming to solve everything. I love UCT because whenever I come here, I get titles, I get promoted over my bosses back home. So a few editing issues. I have not taken over the public admin program. My boss is safe. But I love this place. I always get these wonderful promotions. Just a quick interactive thing. I think most of us have got smartphones, right? If you could just please take out your smartphones. Simple exercise, don't worry. I've worked for many government institutions but never intelligence, so there's nothing I'm taking from you. If we could just all go to, I'm randomly going to pick, listen, if you know you have something there which goes against your university's policies, just don't shout it out. I'm just going to randomly pick people and ask a question. You tell me what's on there, if you feel comfortable, because I think we have to do that safe space thing now these days. All phones are out, right? Can you just go to our internet browser? Sorry, lady who's laughing with me. What? First thing, what's there?
The first thing there, how to clean white leather shoes.
Okay, that's interesting. Now?
Analysis, Julius Malema's diminishing political options.
Okay, at the back. Randomly just shout out if you don't mind.
Hopeless continent.
The hopeless continent, yeah. MTN, yeah. Okay, next. Be honest. The whole point of this exercise is honesty. There's only one person I know who's been honest. Yes? You
Pictures of egg.
okay, I forgive you, you're in Cape Town, it's fine, yeah? Alright, can I just have two more? Honesty, I'm looking for honesty. Don't worry, there's a method to this madness.
Let's get it on.
Huh?
Let's get it on.
Let's get it on. Marvin Gaye. Alright. The reason I wanted to start like that is basically I'm from the world of policy. You guys don't mind if I move around, I still have breath. I've been sitting the whole day. As I said, the reason I want to be doing this discussion and forum is my title goes Africa's got problems, I might be one of them. Which actually touches on what you were saying and partially what Prof was saying. When we normally come to these discussions, in our minds we've got institutions, right? People, institutions. It's almost, if I had to use an economic term, it's macro. We come with this huge picture, but we actually never ask where do we fit into this. The reason I want to do this cell phone thing is, in a way, what you read is what you are, correct? And when I work in township, one of the things I always ask students I work with in township is to say, tell me the first 5 things that are on top of your mind. And a lot of them tends to not go into what we term the form of the economy. It's a lot of survivalist things, and it's also a lot of entertainment. That's why I'm surprised no one said Facebook, Twitter, or anything. Hence I know you're lying. No, it's the truth, hence I know you're lying. Because let's be very honest, if we use the premise that the content has got problems, correct? How many of us on an active daily basis are actually saying, listen, when I wake up, this is my mantra. When I wake up, it's my Torah, my Bible is there, I pray. I'm praying for my students, God, let them pass so that I can have pass rate. I need to really get a bonus this year. That's how my morning takes to go. But this is my core argument, is to say, I think one of the under-examined issues and what's wrong with the continent is the middle class, which is supposedly you guys. It's good to look at Kagame and when no issues looking at Kabila, right? But why aren't we looking at us? That's the problem. Because sometimes when we imagine what the continent's supposed to be, it's funny how we imagine ourselves out of it, right? The most likely we have to say we're going to help the continent is to say I'm going to be like Prof, be an ambassador at the World Trade Organization, or I'm going to go into formal politics, right? But that for me is a bit of a faulty logic, because the assumption is I become when I'm there. Hence, we get very disappointed, and I think even maybe a lot of gender activists will say, when we purport this person we're purporting this person's going to go make a difference in this department for us. They're right there, and then we find that this is an empty vessel. You can tell me if I'm wrong. Guys, but it's interactive. Don't worry, I've got a few rules in my class. The only rule I have in my class is if you boo me with logic afterwards. Correct? I'm not going to go through my whole thing, I'm just going to give you a brief. What do I mean by middle class? Look, it's a make it to 10, right? But what I'm trying to get to is, if you're Nigerian, you know most of these people. I'm not sure, Prof, have you met some? I know whether you float in high circles, right? But basically, this is one of my favorite things about Nigeria. Nigerian, too rich for Nigerians to be poor, right? You think Nigeria in your mind, we think a lot of chaos. When you go to Lagos, you see chaos. But one thing which I always ask my Nigerian friends to say, listen, in terms of per capita, in terms of PhDs and masters, Nigeria is, if we could have so many PhDs in South Africa, my lord, NRF would be so happy with us. But there is something I fundamentally not understood about the Nigerian middle class. Do they value education? I'm just going to give you a few things. This is from the Renaissance capital. I'm going to give you this presentation. I'm just running through it. Yes, the Nigerian middle class values education. In fact, it's a core of their belief, right? But how is it that you can have an education system, but you still have an economy that doesn't work for the majority? There's something that to me says it's beyond government. It goes back to us as a class of people. A few things that I just want to, in green, which I really am just going to tease out, is 76% of the sample used work in the public sector, and those working in the private sector, they 8% of their business. The key concern over the next 12 months are supply of electricity and employment. Basically, we can all say this is almost similar to South Africa, correct? But Nigeria got independence when? 1960. 1960. South Africa got independence when? There's an open question mark. Is it? I'm sorry. My sister from Kenya, who was supposed to be here, she's the colonial, so I'm being corrected when I'm saying yeah. Basically, discernible inferences that can make. There exists a gap between the middle class and government. That is to say, neither views the other as a possible partner in developing their aspirations. The opposite view of this is development states like Singapore and Japan, where the middle class was created for a purpose. You might not like it, because I know UCT is very big on human rights. Yeah, I'm not a human rights activist. Let's just put it out there. I'm not into human rights. I'm into economic development in all its darkness and forms. As long as you don't kill people, I'm saying, it's fine. The middle class is very well educated, has values, but questions about where and how they might cope post oil. In the stats, you guys will read for yourselves, there's a key thing that gets asked about Nigeria, which is to say, the middle class has not actually created secondary and third tertiary institutions. I think, Prof, you know this about Nigeria is still solely dependent on oil. And what do I mean by this? You know, in South Africa, the one thing we've not had is a lot of oil. We've had Sasso, but everything in Nigeria goes according to oil. The trucking companies go to oil, the banking sector is oriented. They have not actually done anything positive. But the weird thing is that in the 1960s and 70s, one thing has tend to be corrected, Nigeria actually has one of the most fertile lands on the continent. If Nigerians wanted to farm, they could farm. Prof, why didn't you farm? It's not clear how the Nigerian middle class influences government thinking. I'm not saying we need a lobby group that runs government. We don't want America. We don't want the lobby group of the NRA to run government. Yet at the same time, we don't want an anemic government which has no intellectual capacity. What is the overriding ideology of our governments? Zero. The key reason being, where are we? We're coming back home. I'm from Gauteng. When we think middle class, we think we can. If I'm lying, by the way, look, in my other life I'm a pastor and a rabbi. You can tell me I'm lying. I'm fine. I don't take it as an offense. Am I lying? So what were you doing on the UK? No, I'm asking real questions. This is interactive. I'm not into this one. Now, you're going to ask me why I don't want the black middle class, correct? And it's a rightful question to ask. The Master Seven Acts of 1856, give you a long story short, the white middle class or upper class have actually achieved their goal. If you're following my logic, then I stand to be corrected again. I would say this. In a rather cold manner, it can be argued that at the zenith, pre-1994, the middle class project of the middle and upper white middle classes achieved what they want, which is to say they were able to take their wealth into the new South Africa.
Sorry, I'm trying to follow your argument. I think I need to speak again to give some kind of definition of black middle.
That's what I'm coming to. Don't worry, the confusion is part of this. It's slightly open, including the confusion. But I want to stop there to give maybe Prof space as well. Before I get to that, don't worry, there is an actual definition. I'm not trying to play fool's gold with you. But the key thing I'm trying to say is the reason we need to racialize what it means to be middle class is to say you cannot put whites and blacks in the same middle class. It just doesn't happen. And the key argument I make for that is that middle classes achieve what they want, the right one. Which is simply this. You take your wealth, which you got before 1994, you come with it into it. Some research projects and I think some economists actually argue that whites are actually better off post-1994 than they were during the times of apartheid and colonialism, for example. Which is to say, damn it, the whites are saying, bro, why don't we give these darkies like the independence area? I would have been richer. And it's an actual argument to make. But I want to pause there because the whole point is interaction. And I hate when I'm the only one speaking because I'm so tonsil, so please. Questions?
I'm sure you guys can hear my voice fine. Yeah, so I was going to give the mic to then engage with that. And I guess to as an extension of Professor Poe's point, I guess my question then is, if that is the case, is it that the problem has been that we have failed to adopt an Asian tiger development position in trying to develop our middle class? And as an extension of that, is a better middle class or a more functioning middle class inherently the solution? Or does that in itself create a widening gap where you then have a middle class who is self-sufficient and doesn't want to engage with the poor, and also doesn't want to engage with the political elite because we find it a dirty game and will just thrive in their business circle? So, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, and then incorporating your earlier thoughts that you were going to make earlier on.
No, thank you very much. Well, I'm happy for Professor O to continue with his thoughts on the role of the middle class, because clearly the middle class, which is us, we have an important role to play in the transformation of the continent. What I did want to say is that, if you want to be in the forest and try and find your way out, you're more likely to find it more difficult. It's better to take a helicopter view and see where did we come from, but where are we going? Where are we going? Do we have a vision? Do we have a way out of the forest? And let me suggest that, in fact, if you take a broad view, what you'll see is that indeed, the economist did have, some elements of truth in that headline in 2000. But let us have a look at what has happened since 2000. Since 2000, Africa's growth rates for at least one decade have been averaging over 5%. Some economies on the continent are still growing at over 10%. And some economies, like Ethiopia, which was the poster child for poverty on the continent in 2000, has now been growing for just over 20 years at over 8% per annum, with a number of successful industrial sectors from textiles and clothing to floriculture, and with a infrastructure program that has seen Ethiopia be regarded as one of the most successful countries, economically speaking, on the continent. Similarly, even Rwanda, with all its challenges, since 1994, as you know, it's 1994 with the genocide and the dark place that Rwanda comes from, it has made enormous progress. Its growth rates are averaging about 8%. It has a program that has, or economic program that has seen the poverty levels drop dramatically. And similarly, you can see success stories in a number of countries on the continent. And this has spurred the leaders on the continent. Remember, we were, at that time, in 2000, we were still in the OAU, in the world of the OAU, the Organization of African Unity. We've shifted to the African Union, which now has a vision for Africa, which is called Agenda 2063. It's a comprehensive program. It has targets for a range of issues, including governance, political governance, economic governance, but also an economic strategy to transform the continent. And we have an area that I'm more familiar with, a trade agenda to integrate the entire continent. And as I speak to you today, the ministers have just concluded a meeting in Rwanda, which will see the launching of the Continental Free Trade Agreement on the 21st of March by the presidents on the continent. And this is no simple achievement. So yes, there are numerous challenges, political challenges of governance, lack of leadership, and of course South Africa has had its fair share of political leadership challenges. But Africa, in my view, is on its way to transcend those issues and to take responsibility for its own development.
For purposes of right now, I'm going to randomly pick people. Because the thing is, you came for a certain output, right? And I know my team is always talking about two different worlds, but the reason I think it's structured in this way is to say, look, there is a macro government point of view as he's putting it, as Prof has put it, but there's always that question of where do you fit in? And I think, look, our governments on the continent are what they are. I don't need to rehash what they are. You guys know what they are. But the key question to us is, where is the middle class in this? perhaps just conclude by saying there's going to be an agreement, correct? Who's going to be the first to take the bite at the apple? Which basically will bring me to this point, which is to say everything I'm saying is really not new. If you, there's a US-based scholar, Felipe Buena, she actually says, especially within the South African context, there has actually been a black middle class before. If you look at the early history of the ANC, even the PAC, you actually look at using the criteria of education and also occupation, lots of them were classified as middle class people. The whole conception of the ANC and the PAC is actually a middle class conception. It's basically saying we are equal. We are neither lower or we don't see ourselves as inferior. When I say
what if they are educated and people Christianity and educated, they're not really middle class. They aspire to be like the middle class.
That's what if you actually get a book, she actually speaks about land. John Langalita Dube and even Successive were actually one of the largest landowners. We are having this debate about why is land important, yada yada. No, it's not new. It has long been stated land is important. Hence, I think I must have put this because I know the person, so I have to find a way of subtly putting it. Pixika 7, I don't know if he's dead, so just start there. But if you actually look at his history, actually studied in Columbia, from Columbia he moved to Oxford. And during that time, he was top of his class. So the issue of the orientation of the education to me is quite irrelevant. Because if you look at the case like Nigeria, very well educated, hence when you go to most US universities, they're actually quite dominated by a certain West African faction of the Nigerian. So the orientation to me is not the issue. The issue is what do you do with it? And when it seems as though here on the continent, we have this question of, yes, we're getting education, but what's the point of the education if we can't even change the material position we live in? I hope no one's bored. If you look at these, how many of you guys have heard of NAPOC? None of you guys. FAPCOS? My dad, he's a member, I have to say yes. No, see, that's the thing. The fact that he asked that is the problem. We are now trying to say, listen, how do we get black people into the formal economy, right? Just peruse this quote if you can, but the point is to say, at the height, NAPOC, FAPCOS, we're actually speaking, how do we actually get people who live in the township or rural areas not to go bank at Standard Bank or Old Mutual or NetBank, but actually create our own economy within where we live? How many of you guys heard the conception of making the rand circulate in the township a bit longer? You guys know how Jewish business people do money, right? The money circulates a lot around their communities, and then when they feel as though it's time for the rest of us to get money, then we go. Now, how is it that we live in the township? And by the way, it's not a uniquely South African problem. Look at the African American community. How is it that people can just come from wherever else, set up businesses in our communities, do well, and we don't do well? So they say, and yes, you can blame government for regulation, and I'm with you. But again, I'm just asking the core question of, we live in these communities. We're studying at UCC. We are the bright of the brightest. And we're not just speaking about complexion, we just say we're bright. But how is it that we can't take this education and actually make it work? Because to me, that is the issue of the middle class. And I'm just going to go quickly through this. We have what many of you guys will go to. We have the private sector middle class. And all you're basically going to be doing, whether you go work at Weber, Wenzel, whatever law firms. At least now we know what you guys on the way. But the point is, what you're basically going to be doing, you're going to be working for the 25th, and at the height, you want to be a partner. But what we sacrifice at the time. And I know at the moment your students, it's fun, hey, blah, blah, so we are all one. No, when you're in the corporate world, we're not one. We're one in profits. And we're making dividends. That's all we want. We want dividends at the end, right? So the system will change you. If you don't believe me, let's look at our own history. How many people do we know the private sector that are black and have actually come back to the rest of us? How is it that still one of the largest donors of bursaries are still white companies? Where's the black companies? More worryingly are these people. These are the ones I worry about. I don't have to, we all know this, correct? Because one of the nice things about 1994 is that we created a civil service, which is basically a middle class of sorts, correct? But what are they giving back? If you say, be honest, I'm randomly going to pick you, be honest. How many people have come from a township? Don't be embarrassed to come from a suburb, nothing else. Okay. No, keep your hands up. Be honest, where do you come from? Your name? Kylie. You're going to go work at Weber Wenzel, what you get your salary, where do you take your kid? Which school are you taking your child to? Be honest, don't lie to me. Huh? Run the bottom. Okay, that's it. Your child, which school are they going to go to, or are they going to? Already, when are you flying? Basically, let's be honest, most of us are going to want to put our kids in the very same factories we criticize. The bishops, Sachs, you name them, and we all know them, correct? So tell me, where's your consciousness there? And maybe what we're also trying to say is we have a lack of faith in these people. Because I'll be honest, my mom is a teacher in a township. The only reason I did go to that school, which has produced, I think, Josie, my mother taught Josie. So it cannot be that my mother was a bad teacher. I just don't like to talk about my mother because I used to get beaten. So that was the only reason I didn't go to the school. But it's to say, let's be honest, we actually have a fundamental distrust of the civil servant, public servants. Excluding you, Prof. We trust you. Hence we send you to Geneva. But let's be honest, we have a fundamental distrust. Why is that? Look, the results speak for themselves. Our public sector, forget about Tupile, those are things that makes no sense whatsoever. They have no consciousness about us. You see it in how the services they give us, correct? Now, you are asking, what should we do, which is a bit different? Could it be maybe we might have to look at the Chinese and what they understand by it? The highest job you can want in the Chinese system is not to work for the private sector, it's to work for the state. But that's a long historical, I think it's a Mandarin system, but not very wrong, where it inculcated into you that to serve the humanity, which is their state, the Chinese state, is to be in government. I'm just honestly want to work in government. I try, they keep rejecting so bad. What I'm trying to say is, this second generation is actually what the Black Diamonds, which I think was Professor Simpson at UCT, the Unilever Institute, came up with that concept. This was basically, it's a bridge between maybe Prof's generation and touching on mine, going backwards, is, I think, I want to say that faith. Faith is such a horrible word. Let's find something, English has many lies. Shakespeare said you can say many different things in many different ways, but I think they've not really given us a great platform to move forward onto. And we're stuck in this thing of, what does it mean to be black and middle class? You are possibly sitting in the third and the fourth. Now, whether you believe they represent you or not, but I think they represent a very different, interesting dichotomy, right? One is very comfortable around whiteness and private sector. But when he speaks to the rest of us, he changes his accent. I don't know why, but that's what happens. One is seen as being very militant, but do not believe that militancy does not translate into him not being able to speak to capital. He's also very comfortable with it. So it's a dichotomy we all face, right? I'm not saying we're all DA or EFA, but it's, dare I say, it's almost like, what does it actually mean to be black and not to vote? You're stuck. Because I'll be very honest, I am not for revolutions bring poverty. I don't want to be poor. We already come from the township, I'm not going back. And it's the truth. How many of us want to go back? I didn't study to quote, I think it was a smart thing going to be poor. But I studied, he did it, he just quote, the struggle. And then basically comes you. But what I find interesting about this generation is they're a lot more angry than the second generation. And if you don't mind me using a bit of coarse language, they're a bit more what we say in Kokasi, Kotsak mentality. Which is to say, we'll burn the house down if you don't mind. But the question is not to ask whether they're going to burn the house down or not. The question is, how is it that they got to that level of anger? Because in theory, you guys should not have problems. I think you guys are the top university. My Natal person in me hates to say it, but supposedly you guys are number one on the continent. In theory, when most of you guys graduate, the private sector is going to open their arms towards you, UCT people. So in theory, what are you complaining about? I'm asking, why do you complain?
So are you going to go back to discuss the role the middle class will play in activism? But what I wanted to, you brought up China, and you've been speaking about education go to school not so you can go and work for EMS or someone else, that you can start up your own business and you're innovative. So I think that's one of the things I find attractive, that people want to work so they can go and work for someone else. You know, they want to stay so they can go and work for someone else. So I think maybe a lack of entrepreneurial spirit or something like that might be, you know, like part of the reason why there's no middle class, you know, looking to develop opportunities for others who are lower than them or even in the same on the same level. South African?
And just to add my comment on the issue of the middle class and how as to why they don't contribute. I mean, when you look at the economic situation of the black middle class, most of them are heavily indebted. And so if you look at you know, whether they own any valuable assets and land versus the white middle class, which is not as heavily indebted, it's almost like this difficult position that the black middle class is put in. And they have to go to system. You have to go to survival mode. And so it's kind of difficult, you know, to think about the whole community.
I know there's comments at the back, but people start looking at each other, you want to comment. Yeah.
I just wanted to go back to what you were saying, the lack of faith in these people in the culture community. Now, you speak about, you know, aspirations of sending our kids to bishops and everything. But if you look at the governing body of bishops, the parent governing body, just being the teaching staff, just, I mean, they by themselves can create another bishops. You understand? And I mean, in our schools, in the townships, the governing body people, I mean, they didn't go to school or they work in the factory. And so I mean, even the past slave relationship, I mean, how could you expect me to, you know, be structural, for structure in place by myself? If I don't have the capacity.
You make an interesting point when you're talking about the difference between the white middle class and the black middle class. I think another thing is that it's sort of generational practice. You know, the habit of working with young kids. I think you talk about entrepreneurial skills in China. Black South Africans have only just started to touch wealth. They've only just started to become the middle class. So they don't have the practices that they can impart onto their children to become. So, like the thing that you're talking about, how do we help each other? We've never had, we haven't had enough historical practice to actually get to the point where we've got the skills to help our kids. So, like a simple example, wealthier parents are more inclined to be more involved in their kids' lives. You know, so they help with homework, they schedule social events, etc. And usually that's what they've got more time in because it's sort of ingrained in the family. Whereas black families who've only just started touching it all haven't got that practice yet of working with their kids and being so involved in their kids' social lives and their educational aspirations, and also because they don't have the time because, like you were saying, they're so busy dealing with the debts that they've carried, but they're now in competition with the white middle class in terms of keeping up appearances.
I think we just gathering what everyone has said and the why are we angry with generation. I think it's important for us to be angry because our parents and the generation before, I'm not saying that they have failed us, but they have done a lot for us to get to the doors of these institutions. They've sacrificed a lot and they've worked for a lot of us to be here. And I think it's important that once we're now in the institutions, start to question, do we need our education system to change? You know, our parents forced us to have the education. Now let me ask, do we need the education system to change? Do we need to look at maybe how schools will run? Do we need to start asking more questions in order to move forward? If we're not angry, if we don't question, we will be stuck here forever. And it's not fair on the work that the previous generations have done to ensure that we're even at the doors of these institutions and having these kinds of conversations.
I'm looking at you. Yeah, you heard that.
No, I think she touched on a few aspects of it. I was just again fixated on the definition of the black middle class because I think it's a very porous definition insofar as what in fact makes the black middle class. Are you the middle class because you then have certain
proximity to, let's say, whiteness, or because you've got social capital of some sort? Are you middle class because you're now at UCT, but then you're actually in debt when you go home, you actually go home to the township? So do we gauge what the middle class is on the premise of access to money, or do we also factor in social and cultural privileges?
According to SARS, I think that to be corrected, not SARS, but I think also Steph to say, I think most marketing firms, the criteria is actually not as broad as you put it. It's more, you guys can put up your hand if you're having your views. Do you have a microwave?
Not personally, I don't know.
Have you got a proximity to a microwave? And do you own an LED television?
Oh, yeah.
We know you. Point is, we don't actually do deep sociological work into this in South Africa. Hence, your stats say, and even your lots of marketing firms have their own criteria. That's why I always find it fascinating. I think it's the Unilever Institution, which term, I think coined the term Black Diamonds. It was actually more about consumption more than anything else. Do black people consume? Oh, hell yeah, we consume. We consume everything to the point of we go to overdrafts of overdrafts of overdrafts. So consumption is it, but do we save? You see, because in my, because she's asking, when are you actually going to finish TK? Theory, this is my working definition of the theory, right? It's porous, you're right. There is no one, even in the world, there is no one definition, right? I know my sister from Kenya, you're not going to like, but I have Weber. You can't ignore Weber, people. Weber puts it that there's 4 types of classes, right? Dominant entrepreneurial, property, petty bourgeoisie, workers with formal credentials, those are like what I got from this, and this is how I work, is I use my own criteria. And there's only 2. Are you entrepreneurial and are able to get somewhere with it like you're asking? And 2, which counts more for civil servants, what new ideas are you bringing? Because part of being in the middle class is to bring an idea. The reason why I go back to these guys a bit is that their idea was that we are equal. We're not subhuman. That's why that idea could sustain them to 1994. What's missing is you guys. What's your fresh idea that you're bringing? Because to be middle class is to have access to education, yes. But what I'm finding, just a quick, there's no one middle class, right? I think that she's the richest lady in Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken. Everyone knows this guy. He kind of represents it.
I'm just wondering, maybe I'm wrong, I'm misunderstanding your argument. So you're asking about what new idea we bring in. Don't you think that might be a heavy burden for people who are dealing with so much structural and historical oppression to now then ask them to sort of fix or sort of pull themselves out of that oppression by saying, well, what new idea do you have? What in terms of being angry, what if you come up with something to fix a problem that maybe we don't even understand because we sort of just were born and big while somebody said, hey look, here's your history, it affects you, pull yourself out, come up with an idea. So don't that might be just a bit of a heavy burden.
Yeah, I think in your argument you overestimate the power of the black middle class and you underestimate the baggage that this black middle class has, like in terms of, because you enter, as you say, of education, you enter the middle class and so much baggage from just the people who were disadvantaged before. Because, like, obviously when you get a job, like, you raised in a way that when you get a job, you need to pay so please give this much money to your parents and all of that. You end up with nothing you do for yourself. And also, like tax is a growth thing. And just those kind of burdens, you underestimate the role they play in how a person can interact within this black middle class circle. And also, you must understand that it's not like a thing with black middle class is now just their own separate entity. They still work under the white middle class and white superior class, so they still need to function within that. They can't just bring in ideas because ideas can get taken away from them by the white middle class or like the ones that think superior to them. So you overestimate like the power of the black middle class more than you should because you actually believe that class.
Professor, before I go, my last point.
It's fine.
My last point is this. I think I blame the government. We've got 1.4 trillion rand budget, 1.4 trillion rand to charge for. And for after 23 years, the government still argue as if we are not in charge. So if there's not political, one thing I'd like the center can invite Town with me. Not only his capacity as a previous and his capacity as, I think he's in charge of this outflow problem. I think we lose $100 or $150 billion a year in illegal outflows. And then we rely on not FDI, what's it called? FDI? They give us money back.
Foreign direct.
Except they help us,
Aid.
Yeah, aid, let's say, yeah. But they claim that for every $1 that the foreign give us in aid, $2 go back because they dictate terms. My point is, I think once we tell this government in no uncertain terms, stop playing this victim mentality. You're in charge of 1.4 trillion rand. You can make a change. After 20 years, how long do you still want? 20 years. How long do you still want? Must we still give you another 20 years and another 1.4 trillion rand to do what? To indulge in corruption.
But I have to do a lot of things at the same time. To answer your question and also bring it back to profit for us. In terms of the illicit financial flows, Thabo Mbeki doesn't lead it anymore. I've actually finished the project because I actually work for the Thabo Mbeki Institute. So I'm actually leading the project. Two, do I estimate over it? No, I don't, because the thing is, I'm giving you a historical background to say it's not as though, oh my lord, this middle class of black people has just been invented. That's not my argument. My argument is that we've got a history of it. Why don't we learn from what the Pixika Stemis did and come up with that new idea? Now, when I say idea, maybe it's a heavy burden to carry, but it's an issue that what does it cost you to dream something new? Here's one idea I'm pushing in policy at the moment, to say, look, we've got a rather unsustainable number of single-headed households who are mostly female, correct? So when we tax people, why must I tax, if I come up for my mother and father with me, right? They pay whatever the tax rate is that they pay. You're a single mother who basically, tax doesn't really care that you're a single mother, but we still tax you on the same scale, if I'm not correct. Why aren't we pushing to say, listen, why don't you have a different type of rebate for single mothers? So, when I say idea, I'm not saying, oh my word, come up with something that's going to dramatic, simple things, people, simple things.
I think that's an interesting point, because I think that's what many students have been pushing, the idea that people who may earn a certain amount of money but have more burden be taxed less. Right? I think that's what many students have been pushing through the protests. And it took students getting that angry for the government to respond. It took a PR disaster. So I mean, that's the point about that. I think the students in this room are making is that for there to be a change, it takes us burning down the house. So it's not like this suggestion I was having the right new ideas is new. It's actually very, very old. It's since 1994, since black students were allowed to come to this university, they have been pushing for ideas that we're just making now. But it took until 2015, when students started burning down the house, that the government started to respond, and the university started to respond. So you're asking why we're angry? Because the ideas have been there, and we've been the people who are in power, those that are white, those that have the money, have not been listening. They haven't been interested because our black bodies are irrelevant to them. When we burnt down the house, because now they had no choice, because the entire world was looking, they decided to maybe let's consider giving them this and that. And now students who earn a certain amount of money, like parents earn about $100,000, I think in the year, you get that 10% off rebate. So I think maybe in that instance, like I was saying, you're asking for too much, because it takes us having to be very, very angry. It takes us having to burn down houses for people to respond. So I don't think that the issues and the ideas are not being brought up. It's just that people only want to listen when South Africa is bad.
But you want so much wood here at UCT, why don't you get angry again?
We are getting angrier. The angrier we get, the more.
What I'm trying to say in a very facetious way is to say, I'm hearing you, but the point is to say.
Getting angry is that yes, we do get the ideas pushed in, but then the casualties are heavy, which is the poorest of the poor factors that are then cut out of their education because nobody wants to protest next year. Nobody wants to continue to extend the academic year. So push out the poorest who are complaining, push out the ones that are protesting, and then let those that are privileged remain. And this is what's happening, is that the poorest of the poor are being pushed out, and people with the right ideas that you're talking about are being pushed out. And that's what we're saying, that when somebody's got an idea, it's taken away from them, like you were saying, black people, the white people will take it away from the black students, and then the black students are cut out. So I think that's the system that a lot of black students are sort of navigating. That I've got this bright new idea, I want to fix the problem, but if I fix the problem, I become inconvenience. When I become an inconvenience, I get cut off, I become casual.
Yeah, I agree with that completely, because even if you do have those ideas as a unique academic class, we don't have the social capital nor the economic capital to push those ideas anyway. So we just have in this state. I mean, how many people do you think live in Megas right now or in Eastern Cape have so many ideas, but all they can do is just talk about them amongst each other because they can't do anything with it. They don't have the social capital or the economic capital to do anything with those ideas. So it's easy to say, like for the testing that you're talking about, what have you done to get it done?
You're asking a direct question. No, I'm actually pushing, I'm advancing it through the Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Institute. And look, my base is I'm a scholar. I'm actually advancing it in my policy work. As of the 23rd of March, we're actually hosting, I think, 25 or 30 of the brightest, so to speak, young people. My policy position will be that. But maybe to wrap up what she's also saying is sometimes, you're not going to like to hear this, but sometimes you have to admit that time is going to be long. I think that's the one thing maybe our parents did not tell us, that time is going to be long. There is no easy, oh my word, I protest today, things get done in a year. That's what I'm saying. How long are you willing to carry on with this idea of yours? Because maybe I always tell people, maybe this is just in closing from my side, is we are unfortunate in South Africa that we came from a generation where we're old enough to have been able to say, my word, we've got a president who is a dollar billionaire, which is actually an unnatural phenomenon. You don't gain that much wealth so quickly in a lifetime. So you guys rightfully have got an expectation to say, but wait, if President Cyril could do it, why can't I? But that's not how life works, unfortunately. It's a slog. I always use the example of Marx. You'd think Marx's idea was captivating, brilliant for its time in the industrial age. Marx's idea only actually started to catch fire post his death. So I'm saying, when I'm saying your idea costs you nothing, I'm saying it'll cost you time, some capital, and you might not even see it come to tuition and fruit. But I think we have to be very open to say, that's how it works. But the belief that, oh my word, I'm going to come up with an idea now, people are going to like it, nowhere in the world does it work like that. So yes, you're right, you can say, PK, what you're saying is a bit out there, but what I'm saying is, if sacrifice requires time, how much are you willing to sacrifice? And that's it, and it's a simple, I wish I could give you something more biblical and wonderful, but it's sacrifice.
Well done, thanks. I enjoyed listening to the discussion. In fact, I'd rather listen to you than make any comment, but I can't help responding to your challenge, Prof. I mean, I think that any definition of class has to be both objective and subjective. So objectively, you can ask any of these agencies to do a few numbers, and you can decide that someone who earns certain income between X and Y per year is in the middle class. And there will be some variation, but you can work out an objective indicator. Subjectively, that's more difficult. But I think that there are maybe two ways of thinking about that. As you've raised the question of what is the role of the middle class. So the two ways you can go. The one way you can go is you can seek to take advantage of the objective reality that your class position puts you in. You are in a position to move up the mainstream of the economy from nice schools in the suburbs to nice law firms in the city, and then maybe you can even, move up the same stream as Ramaphosa. That's one way to go. That's one way to go, and there's nothing wrong with that. There is another way to go, which I think the Prof is pushing us, which is to be conscious of yourself as an agent of change. And what is, in my year, so when I started university, because life was completely different. I went it was called Natal University too at that time. But when I went there, we were only 50 black students, no more than this room. The rest were white. My historical mission was to create a black student society. I was asked to be the president, and the rest is history. We did a lot of things. We fought for what were our rights at that time, how we understood it at that time. And we worked with all other groups to assert our own demands. That included the trade unions, the community organizations, the women's groups, lots of civil society, including the white student body, the progressive white student body, and some of the professors who supported what we were talking about at that time. And the challenge really, I think, for you today is, what's your historical mission? I really don't know the answer to that. I have been thinking about it since I now am based at the university, but I can't think about it myself. You have to, and perhaps in an engagement, we can do it together, but you really have to think about what is your historical mission? How do you fit in the process of social change and transformation? How do you take what those old fellows did in the 1950s and the 1960s, how you push the envelope further and push down the path of transformation so that more people can move out of the townships into the suburbs? I don't know what the answer is, but I think that my own observation is that there's too little of that thinking taking place, in South Africa anyway.
Thank you very much. I think by way of conclusion, through all the discussions that have come up, one thing kept coming up as a common denominator, the fact that the burden is on us, the middle class, the educated, to take leadership. And as a counter to that, almost as a pushback to both your positions, though I know they vary in a sense, I am of the belief, as some people, that you cannot entrepreneur your way out of certain problems. You cannot entrepreneur your way to get electricity. You cannot entrepreneur your way to get good roads. In fact, the responsibility is on the state to provide the enabling environment for you to thrive most effectively as an entrepreneur. And places like Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana have proven that to be true. I think I have too much. So I guess my question then is, after throwing so much of this burden on us as middle class, how much can we realistically do based on the constraints that are placed upon us by the very nature of flawed leadership that we have? And you may choose to answer that question, you may choose to all go home with that question, but I guess that is something that we need to think on. So it doesn't seem like, as much as we want to push, how much of that push is going to yield meaningful results down the line? I don't know if you want to answer it. If you do, if not, we could.
Just on that one, though, when I say the pushback, it's to say, okay, my simple philosophy is this when it comes to leadership. I think you made the assumption that we have leaders. If I'm not mistaken, in history, I mean, back when I was doing history, is let's not confuse a position of leadership with leadership qualities. It's very possible, and I always use the example of female ministers, sorry to say. You can be a female in a ministry and still operate like a male. So clearly the issue is not the position, the throne, let's use what the Chinese would say, throne. Clearly the issue is the person, right? Now, leadership back in the day was always about what have you proven yourself to have been. You basically came with the concept, what have you done? Let's be very honest, people. How many of the leaders, quote unquote, if you look at South African government, that what's the curriculum vitae? I had an interesting discussion 2 weeks back where I said, if you actually look at most of our ministers, ask them, what have you done to improve yourself? I used to work at the legislature. I know that the government takes on those little short courses. Prof will tell you, not many of them take advantage of it. Now look at, and I know my mother also hates when I use China. I don't know why people hate China so much. But it's an issue of saying, a friend of mine works in Beijing. He said when you go to Beijing, there's actually 3 buildings, important buildings. In 3 of these buildings, they have hired researchers who simply look at the continent. 3 buildings for America, 2 for the rest of the world, and I think there's one building for Africa. What the Chinese government has basically done is to hire researchers to ask, how do these Africans think? And Prof will tell you, when you go to these trade tables, I will make use to speak about how the American government, when they come to trade, they bring firms. And a lot of the professors have gone from academia to firms, right? Now, look at outcomes. What have they brought? And trade is a very interesting one because trade is very brutal and it's very legalistic. It's what is your curriculum entail? So for me, I can't get disappointed at the government people we have because it's all true. They're not leaders. They're people, that's what I know, which is to say, I found that the tree was planted and there was shade. And I'm taking advantage of it. So for me, like even President Jacobson, he didn't disappoint me. Because what he was doing was what he's always done. Hence, I cannot be disappointed by any minister at the moment or government or president because a lot of those people are not leaders. So what's the disappointment? That's what I'm saying. For me, I'm looking to self. With the students I have, I challenge them. And I even look at our education, we have to change, not burn it down, but the question is to say, if we've been doing this, what's the curriculum in law for the last 20 years? If it's not been bringing a result, maybe we should actually change there to say, because let's speak about this constitutional law. You know, when I go home, I can't quite explain it to people, but Prof will say, listen, how actively do you guys use it to explain issues of water rights and I think habitation? And I always tend to find that we are very quick to want to say about Prof, but we're very poor at actually taking leadership. Leadership is to take. You take the solution. And by the way, I'm not one of those people who's democratic about sharing issues with people. I will take you. My students, I will take you. I will sit you down with me. And we'll have a prosperity. You will either come out there being a total failure or you will succeed. And I think we have to be a bit more, language is a problem, vicious about what we want. And I think we're too, we're too blasé.
Laissez-faire.
Yeah, we're too laissez-faire about development. You take development. I'm not an oracle. These are some of the solutions I'll put up. I'm going to put up some of my other writings on these Twitter and whatever things I'm supposed to do now. But where you can see, this is what I've, for the last 5 years, been arguing that we need to be more vicious about what we mean by development.
No, you can have the last one.
Thank you. There's just so much to say, and just sitting here, so much has been stirred up. But I do think I should say one thing, even if that's the only thing I say. And this is something that comes from a place of constant reflection over what's happening. When you listen to various constituencies speak, when you sit in academic meetings, listen to students, listen to the radio. And people are just saying different kinds of things. And the one thing that resounds in my mind when I think about all of this is that it's important for us to identify, as Professor Ismail said, what historical role, if I got you right, that we want to play. And that's his way of putting it. My own way of thinking about it is this. We've got to determine, we've got to realize what gains we are making, both as individuals and as part of a particular generation or a particular constituency within a particular generation, and not have one view of what it means to succeed or of what it means to have contributed to development. Or, for instance, if President Mandela had seen success as, being free to go to the movies and any parties he wanted and to do whatever he wanted without being incarcerated and all that, then he would have seen his life as a failure, right? But he understood the role that he had played. Well, even if he didn't choose most of it, but he understood that this was his role and this was what he achieved. And even all the things some people criticize him for today, that he gave too much away and so on, was his role. It was, I think it was his role to get things to where they are, so that the next generation, the next people he hands over the baton to can begin to critique it. Sometimes it's the role of a particular generation to succeed in sending their children to school so that the children can come back and say, oh, but we're structurally disadvantaged. Oh, we've got these ideas, but we can't carry them out. That's not disempowerment. Coming to a place where you're able to identify that, that's probably something the previous generation could not quite articulate, though they experienced it, they sensed it, and they suspected. But now is the turn of the next generation to identify that, oh, this is where we are. That's progress. It will continue in that way, I believe, and keep unfolding until you get where you need to be. I mean, I'm in a position today where I can, go to the movies if I choose, and, surf and those kinds of things. But I don't do those things because, there's nothing wrong with them, but that's not my interest whatsoever. And I'm actually also in a position where a lot of my income goes towards extended family support. Like 50%. A lot of what I earn goes into that. And I don't feel burdened. I don't feel like I'm carrying baggage. I understand that this is my role and this is my position, and I'm just doing my part. So this is just one facet of all the things that I really do have to say, but I just think we need to come to a place where we do not describe one particular package of things as the desirable thing where we should all be, and because we think we haven't yet attained it, we're disadvantaged, we've got baggage, we're not moving. No, it's in relation to where we happen to be in the history that is playing out, and whether we are delivering and doing what's our role to do in order to enable the next generation. And I understand that it's a disaggregated generation. We're not all, we like TK said, we're not all one middle class. We're also disaggregated by race and by experience and by all, But to, classify or typify or characterize things as ultimately and inherently problematic just because it's not a particular way, I think is itself problematic. And I think that's all I have to contribute at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much to our speakers. I think we can all agree that this was a very stimulating session. Thank you very much for coming. Hope you had fun. Before we leave, just a reminder that if any thoughts have been stimulated from this discourse, please feel free to write it on a sheet of paper and put it in the PO box. Where is it? Yes, okay, so these are sheets of paper. You can just grab one, write a suggestion, and put it in the box outside. And just to thank our speakers, a token of our thanks. Do you mind doing one? Thank you very much for the support. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank